Hello everyone and welcome to Victoria's Cantina. Today we're having a look at the Medicom MAFEX number 7, the Dark Knight Trilogy Batman version 2.0 6-inch scale figure. Alright you guys, so previously here on Victoria's Cantina we have looked at the MAFEX number 2, the Dark Knight Rises Batman figure. We reviewed that back in summer of 2013 when it was released, and at the time it was a really nice figure, but it would fall apart very easily, so MAFEX went back to the drawing board, and now we have the number 7 Batman based on the same character depiction of the character in the Dark Knight trilogy. And this one is mostly the same. Supposedly it's assembled a little bit better, and it comes with additional head accessories which were not present with the original release. Also has a posable cape. As for the packaging, MAFEX does this square box style packaging, which looks okay. I'm not a huge fan of it personally. And one thing I've noticed with Japanese toy companies is they tend to use really shiny clear plastic for their figures. Like you can see, it's very, very glossy, which I don't really like because you can't really see the figure in there too well unless you take it out of the packaging. But it says MAFEX number 7, the Dark Knight Trilogy, and then at the bottom, Batman version 2.0 action figure. The side says MAFEX Dark Knight Trilogy, gives you a look there at the Batman. Opposite in there has a portrait of the figure. Looks pretty cool. And at the back you can see the figure in various poses that look pretty dynamic. Just to show you the range of options you can have when posing this figure and utilizing the different heads and accessories. Down at the bottom it says Medicom toys and some information there. Top basically has the same picture we saw on the side, Batman right there. And then at the bottom you get your warnings, ages 15 plus, adult collectible. So let's go ahead and get this out of the packaging and see what it's like. Okay, you guys, and here's Batman out of package along with all of the accessories that he comes with, and there are quite a few, which is very nice. Now, in the interest of being a thorough and honest reviewer, I do need to let you know that I had to buy 2 of these figures because the very first one I bought had a very tight head, and I was trying to remove it from the neck joint, and when I did, the neck peg just snapped. So I had to go back and get a replacement. And this one has other issues that we will look at in just a little bit here. So let me go ahead and put the accessories aside, and we'll go ahead and focus on the main man himself, the Batman. As you can see, the silhouette of the figure is very, very nicely done. It looks very realistic, which what I really appreciate, especially on a figure you're going to pay a little bit more for, because these do retail at $49.99. I was able to get a deal on it. I got it around $40. I really appreciate the realism. It looks very faithful to the film. Head sculpt looks very nice. The outfit looks very nice. It does have the posable cape, so depending on whether or not that's something you like, it does look a little bit strange. You can't really get a completely neutral pose with the cape because it does have wires in it and they don't really lend themselves to a perfectly neutral look. So it does look a bit billowy. I do think that I preferred the cape on the original release. Now, this being a MAFEX figure, aka Miracle Action figure, there is loads of articulation present and of course plenty of accessories. Now allow me to give you a close-up here of the head, and you can see that it's a very nice face sculpt, and I think that's one thing that really sets this release apart from the very first version. Looks very much like Christian Bale in the Batman costume, and I think it looks very, very nice from the side. Looks great. It's just a terrific head sculpt, and again, very faithful to what we saw in the film. The finish is basically this matte sort of look, which has a little bit of a sheen to it, and I think it's just very faithful in its recreation of that look from the movie. You can see the neck has some really nice detail on it. The eyes are painted pretty nicely. They seem a little bit imperfect, but they look good. The flesh tone looks pretty good as well. Not too dark, not too light. I think it looks about where it should be. Rest of the detail on the costume is very nice. Of course, we have this very carbon fiber type look to it, just like we had with the very first version of this figure. And that's not completely movie accurate, but it does definitely look good. And Bat logo there on his chest is very nicely done. You can see his shoulders right there. He's got these pads over them. More carbon fiber on the arms. Right here at the biceps. Very nice look at the gauntlets right there. I think those look very cool. And then, of course, you get the blades affixed there to the gauntlets, and those look very nice as well. Whole torso area looks quite nice. A little bit skinny, I would say. The belt looks very nice. It's got a nice bronze sort of look to it. Some extra silver paint detail. Give you a look there at the back. And you will see the hole there, and that's so that you can use them with the display base. Legs look very nice. The thing with super articulated figures is that you sometimes get these gaps, in the figures. So it does kind of hinder the aesthetic a little bit, but, that's what they were going for here, was a super articulated figure. So kind of got to expect that to be the case with something like this. And boots look very nice as well. He's got his knee pads. Once again, the cape is this very interesting material that it feels okay in my hand. It feels a little bit silky, and it's got these wires. There's actually 4 wires. You get one here on the end, you get 2 in the center, and then you get another one here on the other end. That way you can just, fold them and just pose them however you want to do it. And that's cool. I do appreciate that, because if you put it on the Batpod especially, it looks very nice, and I'll show you that in just a sec. I don't know. I wish they would have included maybe an interchangeable cape. I think that would have been ideal, because I really liked the cape from the very first MAFEX Batman figure. It looked very nice, felt very high quality, and this just doesn't feel as high quality to me. So if they would have had a way to do interchangeable capes, I think that would have been best. In the way of articulation, we get quite a bit of it here. Firstly, with the head, it does move around from being on a ball joint, and if we pull it off, which it does come off a little bit easy, you're going to see that there is a neck peg in there, and this is actually the one that snapped on my previous Batman figure that I got. You can rotate that in there, and then the neck is actually on a joint as well. The shoulder joints can be moved around quite a bit because they are also on. See, this is the thing with MAFEX figures, is that they look awesome, but they're very, very fragile. This was a huge issue with the first release, the 1.0 Batman. Supposedly they fixed it with this one. Clearly that's not the case. So that just falls out like that. You also get a swivel here at the bicep. Now this one does seem to be super glued in place, which is a huge problem for me. And I just cannot get it to rotate. It should spin pretty easily. In fact, if you look at the right arm, all I have to do is barely move it like that, and it just kind of falls off. So that's a big problem with these as well. And just 2 extremes here. You have one that doesn't come off, one that comes off too easily. It's a little frustrating. You do get your double bends here at both of the elbows. You can bend and swivel the wrists, but they are actually on these little pegs here, which can also be rotated within the arm as well. So pretty interesting. I have heard of these breaking pretty easily, so if you get this figure, you do want to be careful with that. Try not to take the hands off too much. At the upper torso, we get a ball joint, and it has a good range of movement. At the lower torso, you get the same, very good range of movement. The hips are pretty interesting, because with the MAFEX figures, you can position the legs in just a normal way like this, or you can actually drop them down a little bit like that. And that's just so you can get a little bit more space right here, so you can pose it a little bit more dynamically. So that's pretty cool. And of course, you can spin them around and move them around in all directions. Very nice. You get double bends at the knees, and then hinging at both of the ankles, and you can move them around in all directions. You can move the tip of the boot a little bit, which I think actually hurts the figure a little bit, because it does kind of make it a little bit unstable. It's just not a very good joint to throw in there, especially when you're trying to pose it, and all you have to do is push it forward and it moves up, so it makes the figure tip forward. So overall, the articulation is very nice on this figure, but MAFEX still has a long way to go in order to ensure that things aren't just like falling out, because that's just ridiculous. And very, very frustrating when you're trying to pose your figure and then parts are just falling out. So I like the articulation for the most part, but there's still a lot of work to be done. It's also worth mentioning that the figure is very rubbery feeling. It has a very nice quality feel to it. It's not hard plastic. Definitely feels like a rubberized suit, which I think is pretty cool. In terms of accessories, we do get an extra head of Batman with the cowl on. And he's kind of got his angry face going on. I don't really like this a whole lot. Maybe that's mostly an issue of paint, because you can see the eyes look kind of demonic almost. His teeth look a little bit yellowy. And I don't know. It looks good, I guess. It's just not really It just doesn't seem like it's painted very well. We'll go ahead and pull off Batman's head, and we'll throw the alternate head on there. And there he is. Yeah, it looks okay, but this wouldn't be my personal choice for displaying the figure. It just looks a little bit strange. Now you also get a Bruce Wayne head, and this one actually does look pretty good. It does have a pretty good portrait of Christian Bale, and it's actually pretty nice. Although, however, the paint is not all that great on here. It's clean as far as like the features go, like the eyes and the eyebrows. Those look really good, but it just looks kind of dirtied up. Like, look at his nose. It looks like it's got like soot on it or something. Some more on his forehead. I like it quite a bit. It just, I don't really like how it's like dirtied up looking like that. I'm really not sure what the rationale would have been behind something like that. Go ahead and throw the Bruce Wayne head on Batman's head. And that actually does look pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. I do like the way that this looks. Again, just the way that they kind of dirtied up his skin just is a little bit odd to me. So Batman does come with 3 interchangeable wrists, and each one is a little bit different. This one's kind of like in a pistol grabbing position. It's a right hand. We have another right hand which kind of looks like it's just in an open sort of position, and then we have an extra left hand which is also in a similar open position. Now to place them on there, we will just take the hand and gently, there we go. That's definitely in right there. So Batman does come with 2 weapons, the first of them being his grapnel gun, and this is the same weapon that came with the previously released Batman in the same outfit, and it looks nice. It's painted a pretty good metallic sort of look, a little bit of bronze paint, a little bit of silver, and then some darker gray. And all in all, it's a pretty nice accessory. Pretty simple, but you know, Batman's got to have his grapnel gun in there. And then also, like the original release, Batman does come with his Emp Rifle. And I like this one quite a bit. It's got a really nice aesthetic to it. You know, it is simple. There's not a whole lot going on in terms of paint. You do get a little bit of silver there at the front. I think maybe some blue LEDs or something to make it light up would have been super cool. But, you know, can't really expect that at this price point. So for what they did here, this looks good. And you can also clip this onto the Batpod. Now, MAFEX does also include a 3-piece stand with their MAFEX figures, which I think is especially useful. I do use these for other applications as well, such as dinosaurs, for displaying the flying reptiles. I think they work pretty well. So it is nice to have one of these with each of their figures. And as you can see, it's got a clear plastic base. You got this piece right here, which has 2 pegs and is fully articulated, so you can move it, and just goes straight into the base, just like that. And there's 2 more spots here if you wanted to put it in either one of those. And then we grab the other piece right here. You can see it has a bit of a claw on it if you wanted to have your figure held maybe at the waist or something, and then you would just attach it like that. Now, I did show you earlier how Batman has a hole in the back of his body, right there. For an instance like that, we would just pull this out and then plug him in. And what's really neat about this base is that you can just get him into some very dynamic poses, which is really fun. You can also put the clip back onto the base and then just grab Batman at the waist, if you wanted to do that. And then just put him in some very creative poses. I love having the flexibility of posing him however I want to do it. And if you just have some time to sit and play around with it, it's actually a lot of fun. And that's a result of the combination of the figure looking very, very dynamic and having a very nice sculpt and detail to it. And then having, of course, all the articulation. Even though some of the articulation just doesn't work all that well, with a little bit of patience, you can make it a little bit more tolerable. And I think that's the most important thing here with something like this, is that you're having fun with it. And I mentioned earlier that you can place Batman onto the MAFEX Batpod. And if you do, the aesthetic is very, very cool. And again, that's where I think that this kind of a cape really comes in handy, is just being able to pose it, make it look like he's really traveling through the wind. If you have the Mattel Batpod, that one is also designed for 6-inch scale figures, so you can fit this figure on there as well. Now, I did mention earlier that you can place the EMP weapon right here. It does clip on there to the side of the Batpod, which is pretty cool. Just adds for a little bit extra playability, and it does spin around, so I like that quite a bit. Okay, and now here's a comparison of the MAFEX, the Dark Knight Trilogy Batman 2.0, along with the MAFEX Dark Knight Trilogy Joker, and MAFEX Dark Knight Trilogy Selena Kyle. We have previously reviewed the Joker. If you'd like to take a look at that, I will throw a link down in the description. As you can see, the figure does scale up quite nicely with both characters. They do appear to be in scale with each other, with Joker being just a little bit shorter and Catwoman also being just a little bit shorter as well. I think these look great together, and on a shelf display, having them all interacting together will just look so cool. No word yet on whether or not Bane will be added to the mix. I think they really need to do Bane, but we are getting a bank robber Joker later this year. Okay, you guys, now a comparison of the MAFEX 2.0 Batman along with the Mattel Movie Masters The Dark Knight Batman. And the differences are pretty stark. You can see that the MAFEX looks a lot more natural looking as far as proportions go. It's a little bit taller, and the Mattel one just looks a little bit too brutish, I guess is the word I would use. Head's a little too small. So the MAFEX definitely has a better appearance than the Mattel version. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, so there you have it. This is the Medicom MAFEX number 7, the Dark Knight Trilogy Batman version 2.0 6-inch figure. Overall, you guys, I think it is a mixed bag. The positives do outweigh the negatives for me. I think the biggest thing that this figure has going for it is not the articulation, it's actually the sculpt and the way that the figure looks aesthetically. Head sculpt is just awesome on this figure, a huge step up from the previously released version they did of Batman. Costume looks very nice, has a very nice rubbery feel to it, nice texturing. Cape is pretty cool how you can pose it. Again, I do think it would have been nice if they would have thrown in an additional cape. That way you could have one that looks a lot more neutral like the original release. The accessories that you get with this pack are very nice. It's great that you get several interchangeable hands and then 3 interchangeable heads, which is very, very cool. The alternate Batman head I don't think looks that good, but the Bruce Wayne head is very nice. You get 2 weapons, which are both very cool, and then a very nice display base that enables you to position your figure in a variety of poses. The articulation itself is a bit all over the place. The joints that function very well exactly as they should. The hips work very nicely, the knees work very nicely, and the ankles, for the most part, work pretty nicely. I'm not a huge fan of the articulated toes, however. I do find that the head falls off a little bit too easily, and the shoulders pop out way too easily. And then the fact that one of his biceps is glued in place, whereas the other one just falls off, bothers me quite a bit. One thing I think that these figures really could use is metal pegs. If they use metal pegs for the neck as well as for the hands, whenever you're changing the hand, you just wouldn't have to worry about it breaking. And I hope that MAFEX begins to use that on their upcoming figures that they're doing for Marvel and Star Wars and Batman vs. Superman. Overall, it is not a bad figure. It's just that you have to kind of baby it. So I would definitely not get this for a kid. If you get this for your collection, it is fun to pose, but again, you want to be careful when moving those joints around, especially when interchanging the hands and the head, because some of those joints are fragile and you just don't want to break it. So I don't recommend this to just anybody. I think if you're a Batman fan or an action figure fan who loves super articulated figures that have very nice aesthetics and look movie accurate, then this is something you're really going to like, and I do advise you to pick it up, but it is almost over-articulated in terms of some of the issues it has with stability. I do want to see MAFEX continue to push the boundary of what is possible with 6-inch scale action figures in the high articulation range. I think they are on the right track, but issues that this figure has, such as the limbs popping off and things being glued in place, really should not be issues, especially at the price point that they are commanding. On a scale between 1 and 10, I'm going to go ahead and give this figure a 7. It's a good figure. I give it a passing mark, but that's really all it is. It's not a great figure, and it really should be a great figure at this price point. So I really hope that MAFEX improves going forward with these sort of quality control issues, and that subsequent releases in their 6-inch line are perfect. Alright my friends, if you enjoyed this video, then I do encourage you to please like and subscribe. Let me know down in the comments what you think about the Medicom MAFEX Batman 2.0 figure, whether or not you're planning on picking it up, if you've had the same sort of quality control issues that I've had. Be sure to follow me on Facebook and Twitter for the latest news and updates. And as always, I want to thank you for watching Victoria's Cantina. Till next time my friends, bye bye.